Welcome back, everyone, to the next masterclass series, How to Avoid Being a Douche in This Business by Mother Collective. Please join me in welcoming to the stage from Mother, co-founder, partner Andrew Deitman, co-head of strategy Charlie McGettrick, and MD and partner Angie Vera-Baracus. A royal round of applause for everyone, please. Thank you.
All right.
Outside or inside?
Not sure what to do with this. Yeah, I got this. All right. Oh, the mic works. You see how it's created even a deeper V in my V-neck? It's pretty nice, right? So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn, which is what it feels like to me right now. When we were first asked to do a master class and it said come up with a topic, so we couldn't think of anything, so we had a laugh and said how not to be a douche in this business. And then a few weeks ago, we realized that we actually had to do this class and figure out something that actually made sense. And you guys will be the judge of that. I think hopefully what you will get out of it maybe is a little bit of reflection on why you're in this business, what we've learned on a very personal level as to what makes you happy, what can create success, and just generally how not to be a douche, like this guy who's on the phone right now. You douche? Really? My God, right in the front row. How important is that call right now? Is it really important? It must be massively important. Sell. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've identified our first D-bag. We're doing very well. So, I mean, I think, where should we start? The idea of, I guess we start with defining a douchebag. That might be a decent place to start. From my perspective, it's really a person who's putting on airs, somebody who is creating a veneer that is unnecessary, projecting something about themselves that is sort of at odds with or they think is important to position themselves in some way or make them feel a certain way. And it's understandable. I mean, we're human beings. You don't have to be Sigmund Freud to understand that we're all kind of sad, lonely creatures who are yearning for, attention and affirmation and all of that kind of stuff. And, so we create a sense of self-importance. I think it's human nature to do so. And I think being self-important in this business it's kind of an occupational hazard as we're sitting in the south of France and me in my fancy shoes and all that stuff. You just start to create airs of self-importance. It's an occupational hazard like, being a police officer and getting shot. And so I think what's interesting to me about it is I feel like very often in this business we lose track of the reasons why we got into this business to begin with. We lose track of our passion, and we start to see a happiness gap emerge. And people tend to fill that happiness gap with a sense of self-importance and all sorts of other behaviors that aren't really about what this business is about. I've been fortunate to become friendly with Martin Puris, who founded a great agency called Amirati and Puris. I actually had my first job there. And he kind of goes on a rant sometimes, and one of the rants he went on was, he's like, people who used to run automotive businesses were really into cars, and people who used to run hotel chains were really into hospitality, and people who used to run ad agencies were really into the craft of making advertising. And everything's run by accountants now, and it's all about public markets and all of that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that we tend to lose sight of the craft of what we do and how happy it actually makes us. And this sort of distraction that we create, whether it's the public markets or the media marketplace is changing and people are just sort of clinging to what they know and their titles and how important they are and all of that kind of stuff, is really just a way of trying to fill yourself up with some level of happiness when what you really should be doing is focusing on the sort of craft and passion of what we do. We're all going to sort of just give some very personal stories, maybe share a little bit of work and things that kind of make us happy. My career, I started, the first 10 years of my career, I was at 6 different agencies. Can do the average time spent. And I was, at the IPGs and the WPPs and the Euro RSCGs, and I had a great time, to be honest. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what I was good at. I learned a lot about what I was not as good at. Atmospheres I liked being in, atmospheres I didn't like being in, people I liked working with, people I didn't like working with. But I was definitely very much chasing, I need to get more senior, I need to get more responsibility, I need a title, I need money, I need all of these things. And honestly, it was getting to a place where I was kind of not that happy. And it really wasn't until, I got the chance to start Mother that I actually felt at home. And I realized that I didn't really fit in many ways to the other organizations. It wasn't that there's anything wrong with them. They're great companies, a lot of the ones that I worked with. But they tended to put you into a box. It was very confining. You're an account guy, or you're a strategist, or you're a consultant, whatever it was. And I didn't really want to be any of those things. And I'm probably supposed to be clicking slides here at some point. I don't even know what else I have. Let's see. This isn't really working. Green, next.
Point it that way.
Point it that way? Ah.
Clicking for us. It looks great.
Yeah, it's clicking for you.
It's not clicking for us.
God, that tech guy is such a
Oh,
douche.
there it is.
Now it went way too far. I'm going to go back. There you go. That's the douche. That's the guy on the phone right here, actually. There he is. Yeah, much thinner, a little younger, but there he is. So I'm not going to stay on this slide because that's just wrong. We'll stay back here. But no, as I said, I didn't really feel as though I fit in. A lot of the roles were very confining. And when we started Mother, you would think I would have been shit scared, and perhaps on certain levels I was, but I was actually the most relaxed and comfortable I had ever been in my career, even though, we were very fortunate to have, great friends and partners in London who imbued a lot of values and helped. But it was, me and 3 guys, literally with a folding table, trying to figure out how to get clients and all that typical stuff. But yet I was really relaxed, and part of it was because we defined the business in the simplest of terms. See, not that, there. Which was, we said, we're basically in the business of creating stuff around stuff. That's kind of all that we do. There's stuff in the middle, like, I don't know, a can of beer, or a shoe, or something, and we just create the stuff around it that maybe makes that stuff more interesting and makes people want to buy that stuff, even if they don't necessarily need that stuff. That's what we do. And all sorts of manifestations, all sorts of ways of going about doing that. And we never really put parameters on what stuff around this stuff we wanted to create. And it was really, really fun when we started to define it that way. And it really started to stretch the boundaries, at least in our minds, as to what our brand could be about, the brand of Mother, what kinds of things we could do. And it just made it more fun. At least for me, it made my brain happy, which in turn made me less of a douche. These are just, a few things to sort of talk about that are fun things that, I'm proud of that we've done. I'm not going to, go through a bunch of case studies, but, everything from, producing rock, what's that?
I said, I will go through a case study.
You will go through case studies. Angie, it's okay. One. Okay. Producing rock festivals, which we do every year for Virgin Mobile. Creating store environments like we do for Wired Magazine every year, producing and creating and designing the Wired store. Huge activations for brands like Target, in this case around the launch of the Missoni partnership. Huge activations for Microsoft. This was for Microtropolis, where we created a miniaturized version of the city that was about 40,000 square feet that you could actually walk through, and all of the buildings had different Surface tablets and all that kind of stuff, and each neighborhood was curated by a different blogger, and just really, really interesting stuff around stuff. This case was a video game that we created for Sour Patch Kids. So we actually created an Xbox and PlayStation game that was an amazing way of reaching the target, and we got to learn about what it takes to actually do a very, very significant build of a video game. This is a book that we designed. It's a guy named Todd Selby who had a blog called The Selby that was focused on people's houses and apartments, and he did his first food book, and we designed sort of every page of the book for Todd. So there's just a very broad spectrum of stuff around stuff that we get to do, and again, it's the way that we start to define our business that I think is interesting and progressive, and kind of where a modern creating company needs to live. There's also, we also get to more and more create our own stuff. So not just the stuff around it, but our own stuff. In this case, this is a blog site. So it was a printed magazine at one point. And we acquired it. I like saying that. By acquired it, the guy who had the blog, we employed him. And it was a big acquisition. Sorrel would have been very jealous. But what we've done is we've redesigned the entire site. We have grown the audience. We've doubled the audience, to lots of uniques every month. But most importantly, what we've done is given a new outlet to the creators within our building to be editors, to be putting things out there, posting every single day. We have our own editorial staff for it. It's about 5 or 6 people who are writers and videographers and so forth. But we're getting to put content out there every day, and I don't have to remind everybody about where the world is going, and whether it's Women's Wear Daily, starting their own consultancy, or Wired creating a consultancy, or MTV creating Scratch. The worlds of publishing and advertising are coming together, and this is part of our way of learning, but having fun in doing so. And what we're also getting to do is kind of break new talent. I wanted to share one video. I don't know if you can bring that up, folks back there, as an example of some content. And I'll tell you when to cut it off. I don't know if we want to watch the whole thing, but let's see.
Minding my business and leave me yours alone. We talking about me. Your job is hold the camera, motherfucker. Eric Kelly, born in Titusville, Florida, raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Fuck up with what?
4-time national amateur boxing champ.
That's a hook, retard.
2-time New York.
Oh gosh. We'll see. It's a wonderful video. So we'll see if we can finish it downloading, and we can watch it at the end, because you will find it to be so entertaining. Trust me on that. Talking about just some other, if you can just go back to the other presentation then in the meantime. A couple of other things that we're working on, that is, us creating our own stuff and not just the stuff around it. One, and I was going to bring a bunch of bottles, and I'm glad I didn't, because I'm looking at this very thirsty crowd. I didn't. I'm glad. We created a whiskey brand, and there's a number of agencies creating their own products, and I love that. I love that our industry more and more are creating their own stuff and not just the stuff around it. In this case, about 3 years ago, we had an idea. I tried a bunch of moonshines, and they were all just noxious. Just impossible to drink. But had this thought, what if we could create a clear whiskey that was highly mixable? And that would be awesome to sort of push up against vodka, and we could create our own product. And that's really what we've done. I mean, we everything from literally how do we find a distiller and working with an artisanal distiller to developing the packaging, getting through all the legal hoops, working with the TTB and many other governmental agencies to actually get a liquor brand launched, hiring a brand manager, salespeople. We're now, sold in about 100 bars and restaurants and off-premise places in the city, and it's going really well. I don't know where it'll go. We now have a couple of big distributors that want to take it national. That's great, but we didn't get into this to become like liquor moguls. We did it because it made our brains happy. That's the way we're kind of approaching ventures in many ways. This is some other slides of some of the stuff around our stuff that we created for our stuff. Sip it, shoot it, mix it. The last one I want to share is this is like, and by the way, if people afterwards want to, play with this on my phone, it's literally like in an alpha test right now. But we, with some friends, acquired this thing called Proust.com from IAC, from Barry Diller's company, when he went from being the CEO to chairman, and the new CEO is sort of getting rid of some properties that weren't making as much sense to them. And it was basically this site where you could chronicle your life, ultimately kind of do an autobiography by dragging and dropping pins and answering questions and dragging images and things like that. And you'd sort of end up with, here's my life, and you could share that with certain people. It was interesting, but didn't really have a lot of traction. So we completely scrapped it and started again with sort of a social game. And it's a very, very simple game. Basically, you come on to Proust, excuse me. You can either create or you'll just find a bunch of things that you can rank. So, of these, Uggs, Guy Fieri, Fox News, a bro in North Face fleece, thumb rings. Why not? You can drag them and say, which one do I think is best to worst? And when you're done, you get to share it with people, and you'll find out how they rank that. And you'll find out if, you're awesome together or if you're mortal enemies, and then you can text back and forth about the, why the fuck did you rank thumb rings first or last or whatever. I mean, it seems very silly, but we have like 15 people on this alpha right now, and it is addictive. And people are just constantly creating stuff. And you're starting to see, actually, much like Twitter, there are people who are just amazing at creating these fives. And you just want to follow them because every day they create a list that you want to sort that's just amazing and awesome. So again, I don't know where this will go. I just know we're having a really good time with it. And it's helping to bridge the happiness gap because, and it also helps clients. I mean, we're applying this potentially to a client like Virgin Mobile. It may apply at some point to a client like Burger King. We're certainly incredibly passionate about the client relationships that we have, but we're also doing things all the time to keep our brains happy. And in doing that, we fill that happiness gap and don't fill it up with being a douche and being self-important. So that's part of the lesson, I suppose, we're trying to put forth. And I guess I'll hand it over to Angie now to talk a little bit more about her personal experiences. And she's the least douchey person in the entire room.
Oh, Andrew. All right, pass me the clicker. Let's see if I can do this. I usually talk with my hands, so double-fisted may be a little difficult.
Just jab me and I'll click.
Exactly. So before I give you a little bit of insight on how I manage my happiness gap, or have tried to over my career, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I have been in this business over 20 years, and my career in this business has been bookended by life on the reservation, as represented by the Cannes Lions, because here we are at Cannes, with agency life. And I went off the reservation and went client side for 6.5 years in the middle, which I will talk about, where I met Charlie. And I was at 2 agencies at the front end, and Mother is the back end, and all 3 agencies that I've worked for have been independent and creatively driven. And the beauty, I think, of an independent agency is that it gives the organization the freedom to make decisions that's best for it and its people. And the creativity for me is really about the culture of the place and being around great work and great ideas, which I thrive on. So my first agency was Leonard, Monahan, Lubars, and Kelly, which no longer exists in Providence, Rhode Island. Close.
Did you get a shout out? Like, yeah, I was there. No.
He was like Boston. I'm like, you're in the hood. It was an awesome agency, and I learned from one of the best, David Lubars, who is chairman and chief creative officer at BBDO, with whom I'm still friendly. And the thing that I learned most from him, that I give him credit for, is what is an idea? And for all of you creatives in the room, he taught me how to treat an idea, what it takes for all of you who are creatives. I wish I were, I'm not. To come up with an idea over and over again, and that every time you guys are doing that, you're putting a little bit of yourselves on display, if you will, and you're putting your egos out there. And so as an account person, that is how I was born and raised, and happy to be that. I didn't feel boxed in. Andrew did, because he's an entrepreneur. And I learned that my role is to help support that, to help sell it. You got to treat it with respect. So if you're putting a piece of creative on the table to show clients, don't throw it, place it. There's a lot of value in that idea. I have to click ahead so I can remember where I'm going. So I didn't realize it at the time, but I learned everything I needed to know in order to stay happy in this business and avoid being a douche at Leonard Monahan. I needed to work at a place that has a really strong culture that's driven by creativity and has values that are in line with mine. I want to work with awesome people. These are actually very much in line with what Andrew just said. I have to love what I do. When I went off the reservation, there were some dark days. We'll talk about those. And I really need to be close into the work because it drives me. And that makes me very happy, which keeps me from being a douche. Or keeps my douchiosity quotient low. So at LML, I didn't have a douchey moment. I was too young. I was eager. Unlike many people who enter this business who are students of the craft, I wasn't. I fell in love with it. So I brought with myself no entitlement. I would say for all you young folks, don't walk in entitled. It's going to get you in trouble. And rather, why don't you bring with yourselves a little dose of humility? It goes a long way. So I had that. It was an awesome 2.5 years, and then it was time for me to go to Portland, Oregon, to go work on one of my beloved brands at Wieden & Kennedy, where I spent 10 years between Portland and New York. And all that I had learned about creativity and the importance and value of it at LML was reinforced at Wieden by the likes of Dan and Lure and Kennedy and Riswald and Janet and I also learned to appreciate clients that are willing to push creativity and are willing to take risks and understand the value in being part of the cultural dialogue. This was my swan song, 1995. You can look it up online. I'm not going to play it. So I was working on a piece of Nike business, and I was working for someone who I came to learn wasn't the best fit for me. We're headed into my douchiosity moment. The person had been at Wieden a long time, and I had been there 1.5 years. The person obviously was more senior than me. I was taught to respect the people that I work for. And this individual was aggressive and had an intensity about them that is the antithesis of who is talking to you today. So what happened is I became a mini-me. It wasn't a good mini-me. It wasn't very attractive. I wasn't even a mini-me of me. I was a mini-me of them. And it led to me having a douchey moment, which sucked. So the lessons that I leave for you or give you from that experience is be your authentic self. I got lost in this person, and I forgot who I was. So if you stay authentic to yourself, it's all good. And then don't get caught up in politics. I got caught up in this person's politics. I didn't even realize I got caught up in this person's politics until a friend of mine was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, Angie?" And I was like, "Oh, pardon my language. Excuse me. People don't curse in here."
It's okay if you do it in French.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I got to learn that. So with the exception of that moment, my first 12.5 years in this business were amazing. And I was nothing shy of happy. And I'd been in Portland for 5 years, And it was time to come to the East Coast to work on ESPN. And I was running that piece of business out of Wyden, New York, which was also awesome. Working on sports is awesome. Working on things you love is awesome because it doesn't feel like work. And I had always had this thing in my head that I wanted to try client side. I was like, let me go see if I can do it. Would I be good at it? And so I was choosing between a couple of opportunities at ESPN, and I loved those clients. I loved their business. It would have been really exciting, and my heart was sending me to ESPN, but my head sent me to run Bugaboo as their first president of North America for 2 years. And I learned a lot. I got a hands-on MBA. Carrie, are you giving me a sign? Okay. I just see Carrie in the background going like this.
I know, I was like, what does that mean?
I know. And I can do a phenomenal pivot table. I can tell you what FIFO is. I know how to build a team. I know how to sell. The product was amazing. That's my little man many moons ago. It's a beautifully designed product. For all of those who don't have kids yet, check it out when you do. And it's an awesome vehicle. But the awesome marketing that they do and we're doing, I wasn't responsible day to day. Carrie Boiler was as the marketing director. So although I had a great team and all of that stuff, I was not doing something that I loved. That's my next douchiosity antidote for all of you to take with you. They may seem very obvious. They weren't at the time. They became very clear. I need to get some water. How am I doing with that?
Good. You're fine.
So I learned a lot, and it was, the pain was worth it professionally because I took an experience of running a company that was really diverse as I moved forward in my career. But personally, it was a full-on shit show. For 2 years, I was sick the whole time. It was awful. And of course, as soon as I resigned, I was fucking healthy. I was like, maybe I should have shed that a little bit sooner. I didn't. I put in my time, and I got what I needed to get out of it. I don't think I was a douche necessarily in those 2 years, but I was really, really, really unhappy. So I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. It's time to go. I'm not yet done with the client thing because I don't really feel like I've really done it, and I think I need to get. I know I need to get closer into the work. So I joined my old client from ESPN, Mark Shapiro, who went over to Six Flags, which is a theme park company, to be the chairman and CEO. And when I went client side, I learned a couple of things that I think have made a difference to me as I've come back onto the reservation at Mother. And that is that the first is that clients have a really tough job. There's diminishing budgets, which puts more pressure on all of us. But there's diminishing budgets, there's a lot of pressure, and not all CMOs work for CEOs or work for companies that value marketing the way Mark did, or the way an ESPN at George Bodenheimer did, or the way Phil Knight did at the time, or Mark Parker does today at Nike. And the second thing I learned was that agencies sometimes do work for creative-only sake, and that great creative is creative. Can you all see? That the agency loves, but so do the clients, and so do your consumers. Because at the end of the day, we're in this business, and it's an awesome business, and it's really, really fun, but we have to help our clients sell that stuff that was in the center, and we do the stuff around the stuff. And so at Six Flags, the last time that company had a campaign that had ticked these 3 boxes off was when Mr. Six was around. And donor advertising had done that campaign, and it was really successful. And it had been 2 years since that campaign had run when we came in, the whole new group of folks with Mark. And what was really exciting for me, in addition to, because I had the people there they were an amazing team. I liked my job, and I was getting close into the work and working with our agency at the time, Ogilvy, which was amazing. You shouldn't knock necessarily a big agency. We had an amazing team at Ogilvy, and Charlie was a strategist on my business who's now at Mother. So you see how that all works, comes full circle. And we came up with this campaign, More Flags, More Fun. And it was awesome because the agency was excited about it. our consumers were excited about it and took it into the vernacular and would rate things Six Flags, Two Flags, radio stations were talking about it. But my proudest moment was seeing an organization of 33,000 employees in the summer, because that's how many employees there are at Six Flags in the summer, all get behind a campaign and channel it in the parks and bring it to life with our consumers. So I was feeling good until one day, my girlfriend Danielle Flagg walked through the door. And Danielle was a creative director at Wyden at the time, and she was meeting me at Six Flags, and Six Flags was very corporate. And I'm standing there in my navy suit. I can see it like it was yesterday. And she comes walking down the hall, and it was as if someone was pumping oxygen into my lungs. And I was like, holy shit. I am so not at the right cultural place for me, despite my love of the team and us doing good work and me enjoying my job. And so I realized that, oh, I'm not a douche, but I'm not as happy as I could be. And the lesson that I realized there is you got to find the right home. So you can have an awesome job and great people and doing good work, but if it's not the right cultural fit, it's not going to feel as good as it could if you were. And then I got a phone call. And it was from a recruiter who said, Angie, would you ever be interested in going back agency side? To which I said, I would, for the right agency. And she said, well, it's for Mother. I was driving my car to Massachusetts with my mom and my son, and we had this whole conversation about Mother. And I said, oh, I know Mother, because I had had a first bite at the apple when we were doing our agency review at Six Flags, and we went and we talked to Mother, because one of our other founding partners, along with Andrew, was Rob DeFlorio, a former Nike client of mine. It's a very small world. And so I said, okay, I will take the second bite, and I'm in. And it was the best decision I could have made for myself personally and professionally. This is our home. That building on the right is the House of Mother. That is our office in New York City at 11th Avenue. And to the left is McQuaid's, is basically our local pub. And those things are very important. And we work really, really hard at Mother to curb our douchiosity. And I think, and what I learned and have learned and appreciate most about what Andrew and the other founders set up long, long ago, almost 10 years ago, is that we assume that if you're coming in for an interview, you've got the skills. We assume you can do the job. We'll look at your book, we'll look at your resume, we'll have a conversation. But if you're an asshole, you're not getting in the doors of Mother. We work really, really hard to hire good people, and we take care of our people. We want our people to be happy in the process of making great work. We also don't have traditional account service. And as someone who grew up in account service, it was definitely an adjustment at first, because I was seeing things and wondering, how is that going to happen and get done? And then I realized, oh, it gets done. And we don't have account service because we don't believe in having middlemen and middlewomen to communicate between clients and the agency. And so our client businesses are run by a leadership team of a mother. The mother is a smart operator. A mother can be male or female. A strategist, and a creative director. And it holds all three of those folks, or four of those folks, whatever the configuration may be, accountable for running the client business and communicating. And it holds clients accountable for communicating directly with the creatives if they don't like the work, not hiding behind an account person. I love what I do day to day. I get to work with all of our folks internally, and I get to work with our clients. I get to be close to the work, which is awesome. And our culture is amazing, it's palpable. When you walk in our doors, you see our kitchen. Our house is built around a kitchen, just like a home is, just like all of your homes. And it's an amazing place. And proof positive for me of the fact that that was like the best decision is that on day 3 on the job, I got to experience this. This is a case study, but it's totally worth it. Do I just click?
Room 1320, 1319, 15, 13, 15, 12 on 3, 4. Room 13, 18, 13, 17, 15, 13, 15, 12 on 5, 6. Continue dancing on 21. Rooms 7, 20, 8, 19, 9, 18, 10, 17, 11, 16, 12, 15, 13, 14. Dance on and 6, 7, and 8, and 5, 6.
It was fucking amazing, that thing. I gotta just give credit. Tom Webster was supposed to be here with us, and he's not because he's back working on our client business. And he's another one of our partners, and he's the executive producer of all things experiential. And Tom, along with his team, put that thing together, and they never once rehearsed the entire thing with lights, sound, dancing, everything. Nothing happened until it went live that night. I know, it was amazing. And I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect place for me. Anyway, with that, I will hand off to Charlie.
Room 1320.
There you go. Hello. All right, so I actually am a douche. I'm the token resident. I'm rocking my red douche pants. You were not a douche when you were my client, but I was probably a little bit of a douche.
I didn't hold it against you.
But I try not to be. And there's different points at which you're more of one and less of one, and obviously it's sort of an eternal struggle. But I like douches, as long as they sort of wear it on their sleeve and they admit to it. And I've got friends who are douches, and I've definitely I've been at meetings at Mother with clients where I've literally leaned over to the person next to me and said, I wish we brought a douche with us. Because sometimes you need it, right? I mean, sometimes you got to blow a little smoke up your client's ass, and sometimes you've got to make the ask, and sometimes you've got to sort of build this vision, and they want it. So anyway, there are. I mean, I've surprised myself. Sometimes I'm like, God, I wish we had a little bit more douche. But the fundamental point, and I think this is where Andrew started, is that douchiosity is directly proportional to your happiness index. And the less happy you are, the more you fill it with bad stuff. And for me, the bad stuff comes from a disconnect between what you're doing and what you really love. And that's what at least my little part is kind of about. And at my last agency, we had this thing called Do Your Job Day, and it was the second Tuesday of every month, and that was actually the day where you had to do your job. Every other day was fine, but that was the day where you had to do your fucking job. And you would have a meeting and people would come in and they try to sell you a framework, or they do this weird dashboard or something. You'd stop. This is Do Your Job Day. Can you just do your job, and then we'll move on with things. But it is weird. I mean, in that environment, there was probably 19 out of 20 working days a month, you're doing all the other stuff other than doing your job, and packaging yourself, and you're writing white papers, and you're positioning yourself in the organization, and you're fighting with people, and so we just Do Your Job Day because we felt that it sort of helped highlight the fact that you actually should be doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, because that's what makes you happy, and that's what keeps you from being a douche. And there's something about the number 150 that I think is really important. And there's some famous research that's going around right now, and it was a very big topic at South by this year. But 150 is actually the maximum number of personal interconnections that a person can actually maintain. It's it's as much as you can keep in your head. And beyond that, it just starts to get messy. And it's also a number that's sort of pretty near what Cicero said was the ideal number of people in a regiment. Anything more than that, and it kind of starts to fall apart. And I think it is important because somewhere over 150, this thing happens where the mechanics of the organization become more important than the work that the organization is actually supposed to do. And that's when you start to get a little bit douchey. Over 150, it's hard to have personal connections with everybody. It's hard to know what everybody's doing. It's hard to have shared values. You can't get everybody in a room together. It's just difficult, and it's difficult to focus on what it is that makes you happy, which for me is strategy, which is about solving problems in an elegant way that yields sort of surprising and inevitable solutions, that help a client's business. Sorry for leaning over. I just got to look at my notes. And it's not that big agencies are bad. I mean, big agencies can be made up of a lot of small agencies. It's not like they don't try. It's not about that. It's just about how hard it is to stay focused on what it is that you do when you get over that number of 150. And so, at least in the last organization I was in, that started to happen. And I love this sort of reductive model of stuff and stuff around stuff. It has a simplicity to it. It forces you, there's not a lot of room for other shit. You're either doing stuff around stuff or you're making stuff, and that's it. But the problem is, over 150, we started to spend a lot of time making stuff around the stuff around the stuff. And that's where you really start to lose track of things and where you really start to be a douche. And it's kind of insane. I don't really know why. It's sort of like those experiments where they put a lot of rats into a box and they start eating each other. It just like that starts to happen. Then all of a sudden, you know, it's the stuff around the stuff around the stuff that's sort of what gets you the promotion, that establishes your tacit authority or your overt authority. It's what, you know, it's awful, but it all becomes about the stuff around the stuff around the stuff. You know, people got promotions because they wrote great articles, and we had a new CEO come in, and like the first thing he did was he sat down and then he wanted to know what was the stuff around the stuff around the stuff that you were doing. And like I would go, and I remember sitting there and like showing him all the stuff around the stuff around the stuff, and it was just crazy. And he kept on talking about saliency, and I had no idea what he was talking about. But then I think deep down inside he knew, right? Because like nobody could tell what the fuck any of this stuff was for, or how it actually like got to what we were supposed to be doing. So we started to make lots of stuff around stuff around stuff. You know, we made books instead of strategies, and we made, you know, books about ideas rather than books filled with ideas. We made books about, you know, learning to do analysis. We made books about topical trends and, you know, emerging landscape of the media landscape. I mean, what says big agency that's tapped into what's coming up next than the social enterprise? You know, even like weird books with these sort of like Freudian ironic self-reference, eyes wide open, where like, oh, we kind of know something's going on and that we're tapped in, but we don't really know. And, you know, they have things like this, and I feel bad because I think, I mean, I worked on a lot of these things. I think some of the other people who worked on these things are here with me watching today. Angie got some of these things.
My goal was to make Charlie completely unemployable after.
I know. Did you notice I put a little black bar over the agency name as if nobody knew what it was? And you know, it's not me, it's you. And this is like early warning sign number one is especially for planners, when you start to spend more time patching up insights and becoming known as sort of an expert than actually applying the insights, like that's it. It's time to like take a deep look inside and get back to your fucking job. Global data and analytics, right? Not just data and analytics, it's global data and analytics. You know, Creative Companion. This is actually an awesome book by one of the greats. Like really, I still go back to it every day. So it's not even like all this stuff is bad. Like I helped make it. I'm not saying anybody was wrong for doing it. It's just that when the mechanics of making this stuff becomes more important than actually making amazing advertising or making amazing work around the work or actually making new stuff yourself, then you become a douche. And it all becomes about something else other than what your job is. And especially for me, for being a strategist. And then, of course, the eternal pursuit of unhappiness, say no more. That's sort of what all of this is about. But even, you know, I once gave this to a client in an incredibly douchey move. And like, I actually hadn't given him anything that he could use, but I gave him a great book, and he loved me. So this is the highlight. This is the high watermark of my douchiness. And it's the, it was called the Recession Marketing Manual. And we put this together. We spent months on it. And we repackaged up basically all of the stuff that we normally did, and we put it into this thing, sort of repackaged as sort of like, you know, how to fix your recession marketing. Obviously, it was 2008. And it was completely full of shit. And we made canned presentations that other people could give. We made canned workshops that other people could do. We made manuals that you could do that even if you didn't know what you were doing. We had work sessions with clients where we would find out what they were doing wrong so that we could sell them more stuff to help them get it right. And posters, like we made like beautiful posters. Like that was like the cool part was when we actually made stuff, but it was just stuff about douchey stuff. Anyway, it was terrible. And again, like for me, it's like this was sort of the inside page, the how to use this manual. And I think when you make something that has that sort of that insane uselessness of the instructions on the back of a wet nap, like tear, apply, use, like then you know you've gone too far. So anyway, I still want that year back. It's literally like the 1 year of my life that I want back because it was all about the stuff around the stuff around the stuff. And so I decided I needed to close my happiness gap. I needed to get back to actually doing great work. And I started talking to Mother, and we had a great time. It took forever, it took months and hundreds of interviews. Angie called me up. And so it was just a great moment where, let me just check the time. All right. It was this great moment where it was like a bad like Dilbert cartoon where I'd gone in to quit. So I was sitting there with my boss, and we both thought we were having a moment with each other. Like he was like, I need to talk to you about something, and I was like, yeah, I need to talk to you about something, and so we were like looking at each other and sort of like, who goes first? And I was like, okay, you go first. And he was like, well, we finally figured out what your new job is, right? Because they sort of knew that I needed like a new thing. I was like, oh shit, like he's gonna, like what if he gives me the dream job after I've spent all this time like finding another dream job? And the irony of it all was he gave me this job that was so meta. It was so like meta on top of meta on top of meta that it was like abundantly clear that then like I could just easily be like, okay, we can just stop this conversation because I've got to go somewhere else. It's time for me to do it. But just to highlight the sort of insanity of it all, this is an org chart of a large account at one of these agencies, and there's actually a whole group of these large accounts that are grouped together, and they've got their own acronym, mostly just because they're so large. But right, down here, like that's where work is getting done, right? This is where like amazing challenges are being thought about and insights are being made and awesome work is being created that actually helps people. And then there's all this like other stuff, right? There's independent operating teams and then emerging markets, and then there's a global leadership with regional coordination and and a virtual enablement team. And my job was actually, if you took 4 of those and you put them together, my job was sit across all 4 of those. It was like the most incredible outer space job, and like even just on one of those, like that role here and the distance to there is light years, and I was going to be like light years on top of light years. So, nonetheless, I wasn't persuaded.
Might have paid better, Charlie. But.
We'll talk about money in the next year at Con. It actually did not pay better. And again, I love this sort of this reductive model, because again, it leaves you with only 2 things to do, and especially as a strategist that's sort of about solving problems in elegant, unique, and surprising ways. It's really great for me because it leaves out all that other stuff and you can just concentrate. And I think just the last point real quick before we go to Q&A is that there is one more, I think, ingredient to anti-douchiness, even at a place like Mother, and which is promiscuity. Right, because even if you're doing your same thing over and over, you do eventually get bored, and then you have to become an expert, and then you become a douche. So either promiscuity in the way that you apply the kinds of problems that you have to solve and the kinds of teams that you need to assemble to do it, or even doing the stuff itself. So that's important, and it's funny, I've got a first day story too. So my first day at Mother, we actually all meet every Monday morning, and we've got these old like high school benches that we pull out, and you have bad memories of being in high school. But the whole agency meets, right, which never had done before. So not only was the whole agency meeting, not only were we actually talking about work, but then the span of the work that we looked at was just fantastic. I think for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through it all, but there was one thing which to this day I have no idea why we did it, but it was basically a series of clips of women who work for Mother around the globe imitating machine gun sounds.
Oh, let's play that one. It's funny.
Can we? All right, I'll go through the span, and then we'll see which ones we can do. And then there was a documentary about basically these homeless people in Bushwick who are birders. They're pigeon keepers. And it was unbelievably beautiful. It was incredibly, I grew up in the documentary world actually right after college. Like, it was a fantastically beautiful piece of documentary work about these guys who literally, like, you would walk by them on the street and maybe worry a little bit, and yet they were incredibly passionate about their pigeons. And they're carrier pigeons. And then we had, there was an ad, right? That's what we do, pays the bills. And there was a great Super Bowl ad that was going to be running in the next month. Awesome, Stella. And then there was another one, which was, this woman the night before, it was like, had sent this email sort of saying, basically somebody nicked my boots. And it's raining outside, and I got to go outside, and who the fuck nicked my boots? But it was one, like in that sort of like all agency way, it was sort of 3 paragraphs too long. And so I think it was like 4 in the morning, and our editors were probably bored and procrastinating actually finishing whatever they were supposed to do. And so they made like a little mini animated film out of this email, which was just fucking fantastic. And so that's, it's that promiscuity of work for me is, I think, what's helping me not become a douche, because there's no way to become an expert, and because every time I have to solve a problem, I have to solve it in a different way. And because also it's an environment where, what this is emblematic of for me is that it actually just lets you do what you do well in the way that you want to. You know what I mean? If you're always telling people how to do what they're good at in the right way, it doesn't work, and I think you become a douche. But half of these things were done not because anybody wanted them to do them, but just because somebody wanted to do them. That's a Super Bowl spot. Here's. Wait, hold on, the next one's pretty good. And they were all different machine gun makes and models, so you actually had to be, specific to the actual. All right, so you get that.
From Susanna Sodergren to.
That was her email. All right, here's my last thing too, and this is about the stuff too. So promiscuity, but it's also, one of the great things is one of the first days there when I was with my former partner in strategy, he was like, the great thing about Mother is that the distance between an insane idea and actually doing it is really, really short. And I think that's what allows us to actually make stuff sometimes, which I think is necessary as well. And this is just a great example of something where, you saw that Target Spectacular work, right? Increasingly, we're doing more and more stuff like that because you can't binge view it and you can't fast forward through the commercials, and it allows a brand to actually behave in a really awesome way. But none of the measurement tools that we've developed in advertising over the last 100 years are there for that kind of work. And we sort of thought, well, we want to do more and more of that work, and we want to be able to convince clients that their $8 million, build out is actually worth it. But none of those sort of like Millward Brownie, things that we complain about all the time, but nonetheless let us justify the work that we're doing in advertising have been developed in that world. And so this year at South by, we actually helped to launch a company that we founded with a couple of other people, and we're actually creating basically like the Nielsen meets Millward Brown of experiential marketing. And anyway, it's just a great thing to help you not be a douche.
Just a couple of closing. I had closing thoughts. Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, they're here. I guess the last sort of parting recommendations and thoughts. I mean, one is, in terms of managing your careers and stuff like that. I think it's important to really focus on the overall value exchange that you're having with whatever organization it is. Just think it's not about the money and the title. I mean, those are part of the value exchange or whatever. But, what kinds of people are you getting to hang out with? What are you learning? What are they giving you access to? All of that kind of stuff is incredibly valuable and needs to be thought through in terms of how you're plotting out your career. Another point I think is important. I think it's really good to figure out and put yourself in a box on some level. What am I really good at? What do I really love doing? I think the problem that organizations run into is they then put a box on how you apply that. And that I think is a crime. Figure out what you're good at and what you love doing, but apply it to fucking everything. As many things as you can that make you excited. And I think you're going to be that much happier. And the last point is just having some perspective. I mean, we can all be snide and, sarcastic and be assholes and stuff like that. And sometimes it's funny and, but we're really, really fortunate. I mean, it's a great business we get to be in. We're in a great place. I love being here. And, take stock of all the things that are happening in the world and happening in other businesses and realize how lucky you are. And you'll be less of a douche. So that's it. Thanks. I don't know if there was any Q&A or... Any questions?
So you first, you second.
Oh, jeez.
You'll be second.
So all three of you discussed filling like your love gap, or when you felt you became a douche when you stopped doing what you loved. But I think a lot of people that are sort of young in the industry generally start out by doing what they love. So I was wondering if you had any watch outs for people that maybe haven't reached that point yet to not be a douche. So where do you see douchery coming from younger creatives that maybe still love what they do?
I mean, I think that to me it's about perspective on where you are in your career and people having a sense of the marathon that it is versus a sprint. And I'm not saying don't aggressively manage your career and don't say, look, I really want to work on this or I'm not happy working on that. But also understand that everything that you're doing builds over time and to have some level of patience within it. As long as you're being treated well within that organization, you're being given the opportunities and being treated with respect and having fun in doing it, I think that it's about some level of patience, probably.
I would just add that as a creative and as a young creative, you're really working on, okay, how do I get to great ideas? And there's a lot of people surrounding the creative process to help support you in that. And I think if you also just remember that if you can be responsible along the way, like some creatives get a little babyish and they're like, can you do this for me? Can you schedule a meeting for me? I can't do that. If you start going down there, I think you're heading towards douchiosity really fucking quickly. If you like stay focused on what you do and recognize that people are there to support you and that it's a partnership, then I think you're good.
Anybody else?
I was part of the Young Lions print competition in the last few days, and like the competition has really taken out the douchey part of me. And I was just wanted to ask, how do you, because obviously award shows are a great fuel for douchebaggery, like you. I don't know how douchey it is to say that, but at Cannes. But I want to ask, how do you handle that? Like, apparently you have to be competitive to be a part of this business in some way. How do you keep that at bay?
I think that just keeping, I mean, for Mother, I mean, first of all, when we enter award shows, for the most part, we don't put individuals' names on the awards. It's Mother. And that's the way we do it. So that's the first step for us is it's not an award for this particular individual, which, by the way, gets to be this crazy conversation. Well, I actually kind of worked on it, and I think I should be listed. I mean, it's like, it's Mother. Shut the fuck up, you know? And so that's the first part of it. For us is if we're going to enter award shows, we're entering it as a brand and as an organization versus it being about an individual. And some people don't like that, and they should work somewhere else. I think the other part of it is just not doing too much of it. I think, you know, professional conclaves like this are important, actually. I get to see a lot of old friends, get to meet up with clients, have fun, enjoy. But, you know, if you're spending your days going from award show to award show and conference to conference and sitting on panel after panel and all of that stuff, that is the stuff around the stuff around the stuff. It's just, I guess to me at that point, you're just marketing yourself or you're marketing an organization. You're distanced from, you know, the core of why we got into this business to begin with. So that's my perspective. I don't know if it was helpful. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you handle if your boss is a douche? I mean, just, yeah, honestly, just leave the company or saying, no, there are some good people around and fighting for the clients and for good ideas or for meaningful strategies. I work in strategy, so I really understand this stuff around stuff. Well, how to handle that?
First of all, that's what Twitter was invented for, basically. Just start tweeting it. I don't know, you guys want to?
Angie's got it.
My douchey moment was working for a boss who, like, it happened because I was working for someone in the organization that really wasn't the right fit for me. And look, part of this business, you have to learn how to work with different people. Like, that's part of the business. You have to learn how to adapt. I would say that if it sort of continues, I think being direct with people and trying to, not being passive aggressive, instead of bitching about the person, going and having a conversation. at Mother, if one of us is doing something that's just out of line or something, we call each other on it. We're not going to humiliate the person. You're not going to do it in person, in public, but you go in to speak to the person. And what I would say is, if that doesn't work, then I would go to that person's boss. But I would start with that person first, because that's growth for you.
I think it's a terrible position, and my strategy was, and this isn't a good one, I don't recommend it, but which is, you do what you do really well, you just focus on the work, and it drives them insane. Like that guy who ruined my life with that thing, like he fucking hated me. Because at a certain point I was just like, I can't do it anymore. Like I've got to actually just do what I'm supposed to do. And it just made him madder and madder and madder, because like I would just like, if you do your job, if you do what you're supposed to do really, really well, it will eventually go away. It's probably not a great thing to do, but that's the only way I could do it and stay sane.
Yeah, hi. When you start removing all the douches from your organization, doesn't that lead to some kind of intellectual poverty? Doesn't every company needs at least one douchebag? Just give him a tag and let him be the douchebag, and it's just handy sometimes to have an enemy or something.
Yeah.
Hire one.
I agree. I mean, I look. Part of that's me.
I was going to say, Andrew sometimes fills that role.
I admit it. I mean, absolutely. I mean, and for somebody who's done a lot of business development and all of that kind of stuff over years, and also when I joined Mother, I had to unlearn a lot of stuff. You know, I mean, first of all, two of my partners were Swedish and very socialistic, and it's together, and we do these together, and they were right, and I had gone through 10 years of a career where it was like me, and climbing up the ladder, and I want that title, and I'm going to volunteer for this pitch, and then I got to a different organization where you wanted to start to create something different, and literally found myself all the time, and I still do, like where I'm like, I think, and it's like, no, we think. But yes, you need to have people in organizations who are going to put themselves out there, who are going to try to drive business, who are going to try to convince clients that you're the best option for them. But I think there's ways of doing it that are earnest and not false, and it is about being your authentic self in some way. Having drinks last night, and somebody was telling me, like, this guy was saying, I'm the king of media in New York. I'm like, really? You need to call yourself the king of media? And you're a senior guy at a media planning and buying. You're not the fucking king of media in New York. I mean, but he goes to sleep at night maybe thinking that he's like the king of media in New York. And
No, that's Howard Stern.
Yeah, well, he's the king of all media. So that's the difference. Anybody else?
Oh, hi. If you say you should only do the stuff around the stuff and not the stuff around the stuff around the stuff, does that mean you don't do PR for Mother?
What are we doing right now?
Yeah. But
Meta. No, look, we do PR for Mother in our own way. I mean, first of all, we kind of say we only talk about what we've done and what we've won, and we also just kind of, we don't sit on a lot of panels. We don't do a lot of these things. We're excited to do it, but do it in our own way, which is just talking honestly about what we believe in. We don't generally pontificate about the future of the industry. We're not big on doing white papers and things like that. We find opportunities like Charlie was talking about with Circle Media, which is nobody's measuring this stuff. We know good people in tech in Austin. We could partner and create a new company that measures. Let's just go and do that versus writing a white paper around measurement in, brand experience. So I think we just try to do things and make things and then put them out there. I mean, we have amazing PR right now around an initiative we did for the Rockaways, following Hurricane Sandy. And, we created a game which is kind of like Farmville, but instead you buy bricks to rebuild the Rockaways. And I mean, it's been covered on tons of, news outlets. I mean, covered everywhere. But I'd rather just do that thing, which is a beautiful thing because we're raising money for these people who are, still living in a really desperate situation, a lot of them. And it's great PR for Mother. It's wonderful to be on television, having your brand talked about on TV, for the few people who still watch it. But it's great, but that's our PR. That's the way we go about it. But look, when we're in the room on the day presenting to a client, we sell.
Yeah, and look,
We're not afraid to sell
Carrie
ourselves.
Fitzmaurice is in the back. She heads up our business development and heads up our PR. She is the reason that we're here. So we do it. We just do it differently.
Yeah. I think. Do you want to show that? Do you guys want to watch the video that didn't run, and then we can, as we say goodbye, you'll enjoy it. All right. Oop.
We talking about me. Your job is hold the camera, motherfucker.
Well, and also Andrew's point too is this guy now has an agent at CAA and a TV show.
Yeah. Brooklyn, New York.
Fuck up my word.
4-time national amateur boxing champ.
That's a hook, retard.
2-time New York City Golden Glove champ.
I can't believe you're still on this side of the dirt. I really can't.
2000 Olympic team alternate.
Where you get the old ass Top Gun haircut from?
2-time ranked #1 in the USA.
Why you poking your ass out like that? You want somebody to get behind you?
Also ranked #4 in the world.
As long as you been coming here, you don't know how to slip and go to the body? Dumb motherfucker, boy.
I had a pretty successful amateur career.
Kelly, clearly the hungrier fighter.
However, I got injured in a street altercation. My left eye got hit, pool stick and whatnot. So that gave me a floater, and the nerves and the muscle in my eyelid are very weak. However, I'm still doing something I love, boxing, training people. Even though I'm training a bunch of fucking nerds, Wall Street guys, no coordination. They're just not athletic people.
They got me over there. Look at this motherfucker right here on the back. Look at this motherfucker on the back. Look at the uppercut. Look at the uppercut. Look at the uppercut. Look at the uppercut. Look at the uppercut right there. Hey, do your uppercut again. Do your uppercut again. Terrible. Like the worst thing in the world. Jesus. Double jab, right uppercut, left hook, right hand. Double jab, right uppercut, left hook, right hand. Do it.
Just forget the address to the gym. You know, everything is not for everybody. You don't see me going to motherfucking Wall Street, picking up a fucking briefcase trying to type, do you? Because that's not what I gotta do. I beat the fuck out of people, you know what I mean? Now you got these pieces of shit want to come here and feel like men at the end of the day. Because, oh, I did something, I punched the buzz. Yeah, you was a fucking wuss. You know, you couldn't last a day in my shoes.
Why you got this shit all the way up there? How the fuck you gonna boil your fist? You got this shit all the way up there on your fucking knuckles, you dumb shit. You grab the knuckle, but you don't come all the way up to the middle of the fingers. You cut somebody to show you how to put on your socks. You look like all the nerds just had a convention on your body. Like all the nerds in the world that say, you know what, I know where to go. And they chose your punk ass. Motherfuckers beat you up as a kid and they still do today. You're a grown ass man. I bet somebody gave you a wedgie on your way here. I bet you fought thread come out.
Like I said, it's just not built for it. Everything ain't for everybody. See, they cut from different cloths. Some people is cut from leather. Like you take a person of my caliber. I'm cut from leather. I'm cut from suede. You know what I mean? I ride the bullet. That's what I do.
Bodilocks. What's going on, Bodilocks?
Look at that motherfucker here. That motherfucker hair about 5 different colors. Count the different colors in his hair.
It look like every earth tone in the color matrix. Let's go, baby. Where you get them young ass shorts from? It's like 1972 NBA Eastern Conference Rhino shorts. You gonna dance after? Hell no, you can't even do this, much less dance.
Hey, it's a job, you know what I mean? And especially in America, you having a job is a blessing. And doing something you love is a blessing, even if the people are miscreants. But, you know, that's how it goes. I mean, I got a few people that I love, and the staff is great. I couldn't ask for a better staff. If I couldn't ask for a better job, they make this worthwhile. It's just that some, majority, most, practically all these motherfuckers here suck.
Big thank you to everyone at Mother Collective. That was fantastic.